When we hear the word cancer, we often hear it through fear, through statistics, through assumptions, through stories that really show the full picture. Some diagnoses carry an even heavier perception. Pancreatic cancer is one of them. But perception is not the same as lived experience. Voice of Courage is a conversation series where we speak to individuals who have walked through cancer and explore not just treatment, but clarity, discipline, resilience, and continuation. Not dramatic narratives, not labels, just honest conversations about moving forward. And today, we continue that conversation. We have with us today Ms. Manju Rai, legal advisor and general counsel, providing consultancy services for leading corporates in field of business affairs, governance, regulatory compliance, litigation, and mergers and acquisitions. She's had an impressive career graph complemented by a loving family. However, she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer a few years ago, and the treatment involved undergoing one of the most complex surgeries known as the Whipple procedure, which was followed by chemotherapy over several months. She has been a warrior throughout her cancer journey, and today she continues to lead a full professional and personal life. Manju, thank you for being here.
Thanks so much, Himmet. It's a great opportunity to be here, and thanks to you guys to have called me here. Thank you very much.
To start off, when you were first told about your cancer diagnosis, what is it that you remember most about that moment? How did you process that information in those first initial hours or days?
I think reflecting in the past, I actually felt nothing at that point in time. When it was shared with me, it just was nothing. There was no emotion. I just remember just staring and looking, trying to process the information, but the feeling, to be exact, was nothing. I just maybe a little bit empty or nothing, So that was my initial reaction, I would think, to pancreatic cancer. Yes.
Okay. So as you were able to come to grasp with the circumstances and with the diagnosis, and you begin processing it, how did you maintain a balance between the emotional strength that was required as well as being analytical about it in terms of the cure, the treatment processes?
Yeah. And then once I started to process it, actually, I think the mind that I have, which is an analytical mind, I sort of really started to get comfort there. I started to think that, okay, now this is what it is. Let me understand how is the medicine, how is it going to cure me? What is it that I need to do? But at the same time, I think, to be honest, I was also processing internally on the personal side that what should I do? Should there be any unforeseen eventualities? How could I make sure that the transition for my folks at home is seamless? So a lot of thoughts, honestly, a lot of thoughts were going through my mind, just trying to kind of take stock of the situation and to be able to really understand that, this is going to be a very different turn in my life, So a lot of processing, I must say that, but mostly analytical is what I could say.
So we understand, and you speak about family.
Yes.
So when the news came out, what was their response to it? And how did it feel observing their reactions while managing your own response as well at the same time?
It is a very tough journey that way, when it comes to family, especially. I saw my husband was he was with me when actually the doctors sort of shared that information with us. And he was speechless and in a moment of disbelief. I was still, not able to, think probably, or I just felt nothing at that point in time. But looking at him, it is a tough decision because you really see your loved ones suffering too. You're suffering, but they're suffering too. And then you really don't know how much to talk about how you are feeling because you have you don't want to be guilty of burdening them more, So it's a tough spot, It is a journey that you kind of see in front of you, especially your family members who care for you so much, suffering as well, and you just see that, they are in a state of disbelief.
Absolutely.
So yes, that did happen to me as well. Yes.
But I think at the end of it, I think family support is important. The strength that you give to them and the strength that comes through them, it really helps all of them come out of the situation. And I think that is what you must have experienced.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is no, let's say, magic formula to the journey. Everybody has different experiences. But I think the family support is very critical. While the journey is your own, it is a lonely space. Let me put it that way. Not because you don't want to share it with your family, but it is a lonely space. It's your body, your mind. You've got to really embrace and brace what comes to you. And the family is there to hold your hand, and they are with you all the time, giving you a very warm, comfortable atmosphere, just so for you to get the strength back and to really go through the journey. But it is a very important ingredient. But you are there yourself trying to deal with the situation and trying to survive. That's the story.
That's true. That's very true. So, Manju, I just started preparing for your cancer treatment. And in today's era, when information is readily available online, how did you decide between what is relevant and what to believe in?
So, I think I have to call out Dr. Shikhande's name, who was my surgeon actually. The first thing that he told me is that there is a lot of information available on the internet on pancreatic cancer. So just be cautious, okay? If you have questions, you please ask me the questions. And you know what? I took that opportunity. Whenever I used to meet him, because I had to meet him very often, of course, before the surgery, I used to have the list of questions I have, and I would put them down, I would write them down, and I would ask those questions. So I think my request would be that no question is a silly question. Please trust your doctor, your surgeon. Ask questions, don't look it up, because sometimes that information, I'm not saying that whatever information available out there is wrong, but I think let the experts tell you about it. So there are people, should ask them the questions and you might get your answers. That would be my suggestion.
That's very critical. And I think the role that the surgeon or your medical team plays in these early days helps define how you approach it. Was it the same with you?
Yes, absolutely. I would think that the doctors, I was blessed or fortunate to have the kind of doctors that supported me from Tata Memorial Hospital, who were objective, factual, and they would help you, at least give you answers to the questions that you've asked them. So I'm eternally grateful to them. Not only the doctors, I think the entire medical staff or nurses, everybody who was there, at that point in time.
So as cancer cases go, there are quite different types of cancer. Unfortunately, you went through something which was one of the most complex, as pancreatic cancer, and you had to undergo a Whipple surgery. What helped you prepare for it?
So Whipple surgery is a complex surgery, and you have to follow some kind of a regime and discipline. Actually, the hospital prepares you. They kind of tell you what exactly you need to do. You have to build up your inner core strength from a body perspective, because you're able to endure that surgery, which I would think that people should follow very carefully, cautiously. I did in my case. Although mentally you are in a state of, in a very difficult state, but physically you've got to really do that and try to stay positive. You sort of really try to see how best, what you can do to make that journey doable. Break your tasks into smaller items that are doable, because with every small doable task, you feel a sense of accomplishment, So that's what I did. So you have to prepare yourself for a surgery, such a big surgery.
I think for most other cases, or most other diseases, people will just look at the treatment. But here you need to build up the resilience. When you spoke about making sure that you're getting the adequate nutrition, the food, forming that inner strength.
Right.
Was there something different that you did? Did you consult a specialist in terms of having a proper diet plan or a lifestyle change?
So all of that is part of the surgery, preparation of the surgery. So to kind of tell you not only what you have to do physically, but from a nutrition perspective, post-surgery, what you're required to do.
Correct.
So it's sort of, there is, let's say, a kind of a SOP, for lack of words, I'm using it because I'm a lawyer, right? So there is kind of a module that is discussed with you. You're told exactly what you're required to do. But at the same time, it's a surgery. So how do you prepare yourself? How do you deal with the situation? And physically and mentally, including, food that you consume, how are you going to be, even to the extent understanding that once you come back home, is there going to be somebody who's going to take care of you? Are you able to do it yourself? So a lot of things go through your mind, at that point in time. But yeah, you have to really look at it and deal with it.
But even after surgery, I think chemotherapy becomes a sustained process.
Yes.
So how do you keep yourself mentally prepared for those months of treatment?
Right. So, I mean, I thought about it like surgery is still, I would think, a one time, I'm just sort of really bringing that up to you. I mean, it is complex, difficult, but it's a one time. But chemotherapy is the most impactful one because you have to endure that. It's about sustaining that and about to complete that, So that is a slightly different journey. But yes, I mean, the mental faculties, how strong you build your mindset, all that, the same formula applies here also. But it is about sustaining and surviving that journey, especially chemotherapy is concerned.
So what do you do to stop yourself from feeling overwhelmed over such a structured treatment sessions?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is my diagnosis of the whole situation. Again, a very personal view of mine that cancer takes away control from you. You do not have control on anything, especially a person like me. I like to control, like myself. I want to do this, I want to do that. So cancer sort of disrupts all that. So how do you kind of really make sure that you get something back, which you can manage? And those are these small baby steps that you take. Like, for example, I mean, my chemotherapy, I'll just give you an anecdote, an example, because I think people will love that more, is that, I used to say that, okay, for chemotherapy, after every session, I'm going to treat myself to something that I would like to eat. The main thing is you lose a sense of taste, but then there are something that I would like, or maybe a day that I'm feeling a little better, then maybe, I don't know, for that time, I had some craving for pizzas, for some reason. So my family would take me out to a small drive and we would just grab pizzas and we were probably trying to understand what is the best pizza, available in Mumbai, in and around Bandra, So I'm just saying that take your mind off your, this arduous journey. It is really hard to do that. But, if you do attend, kind of measure yourself with small steps, it feels like you have achieved something. There is some control that is coming back to me. At least I did this. And then, you feel much better about it.
So you've spoken about control and how it is important, especially when fighting against something like cancer, where you do not have much of it.
Right.
So it affects the mind as much as your body.
Right.
How did that internal journey look like for you throughout the treatment protocol?
So there are days of emotional turmoil. There are days when you get very angry with yourself, very moody, frustrated, depressed, to the extent that, you're thinking, why me? What did I do? I mean, you had a very, very good life. You've been exercising, you've been doing all the right things a person should be doing. Then why me? Those sort of things do come to your mind. And the only way out is to sit down, process them, actually brace them, recognize them, and just calm yourself. I used to write down my thoughts, I mean, that was one thing. Probably I like writing. So I used to write down my thoughts, and against each thought, I would sort of put an answer that, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do that. And the one thing actually I did was to find a purpose, because as I said, that when you cannot really plan anything during the time when your chemotherapy is happening and you're busy because tests after tests, then, infusion after infusion, there's so many things that continues to happen. And you're like always worried that, oh my God, is my blood count going to be less? Then I will not get the next chemo. What am I going to do? So it's a cycle. So what do I do just to make sure that I have a purpose? And to be honest, the purpose that I thought was that, what is it that I wanted to do all this time? And especially in this situation. And about, coming with a target. And for me, it was completion of my PhD. I had enrolled into a PhD in 2021, but I was just not getting the time to work on it because of my office work and, priorities, etc. I was just not able to do it. I was doing bits and pieces, but I was not able to focus. And that somehow became my purpose. So I started to, during my chemotherapy, I was just, whenever I was feeling a little bit better, I would do my research, I would work on it, and I completed my PhD. Actually, I think thanks to the university, they helped me out. I wrote to them saying that I cannot physically come for the interview, but they sort of made things happen. So a lot of thank yous for everyone who was part of this journey with me. I was successfully able to complete my PhD during this time of chemo. So it's about, getting passionate about a purpose.
That's very important, and I think congratulations on getting a PhD.
Thank you very much.
Especially during such an arduous time, but I think that also would have helped.
Absolutely.
So you're looking about a passion, but equally important, I think, would be to maintain a sense of normalcy during the treatment, and to have a fine balance between making sure that you have a daily routine and also focusing on a much bigger goal and objective in your case, PhD.
Right.
So how did you balance between both of them, between being normalcy on a day-to-day basis, but also pursuing your passion while at the same time going through that cancer treatment?
Right. So, to the extent possible, again, not every day is the same day. As I said, that, there are days which are really bad. There are days which are okay. There's days which you feel very happy, I don't know, suddenly very chirpy, and things like that. But it's about really telling yourself that, cancer is a word, not a sentence. And it's just one chapter of my life, but not my whole life. So it's just about convincing yourself and just telling yourself that, listen, you know what, I will do it with some amount of determination, and just continuously, pushing yourself to say that, listen, I have to do it. I will come out of it. I will be, back in the game soon. So I think that's what I did. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Most of the people who are watching, and even for us. When we talk about strong family support, we have heard many people who say that they feel isolated during that time.
Right.
What is something that you also experienced?
Absolutely. I think I would say that yes, at least because you are sort of looking at mortality. You are very vulnerable. There are things happening inside your body, inside your brain, inside everything. A pattern that you were used to, a life that you were used to, suddenly curtailed. There's only so much that you can, and you feel tired. You have a lot of emotions that you're not used to seeing in yourself. So those are very solitary experiences. The family is there. They're all the time, helping you. They're just running around you, trying to help you as much as they can. But there are solitary experiences. There are times that you're very lonely, even though you're surrounded by your friends and family. So yes, it happens.
I think the first person perspective is very intensive.
Yes.
When you go through something like that.
Right.
And we understand other people and family support and friends may empathize with you,
right.
but they're not walking in your shoes.
Right. That is a very, as I said, it's your body, your mind. So the experiences are yours. You have to experience them, and you have to sort of self-educate yourself, and you have to be your own ambassador. You have to show up, stand up for yourself. This is one time, as I said to everybody who's perhaps watching this, that please stand up for yourself. Find this time to really motivate yourself and be there, do it, and, get out of it.
So being there on a daily basis, showing up for work or showing up for whatever task you have assigned yourself, maintaining routine, how did it influence how you felt about yourself?
Again, not every day is the same. Not every day I was very kind to myself. But, I stopped being self-critical. Actually, I started loving myself and perhaps respecting myself and accepting that, this is what has happened to me. I've got to really get out of it. So it's like making friends with yourself. Nobody, at least in my case, I have been a lawyer. I've worked with I've had a very busy life, work life. So I've never had the time to really sit and think about myself, because either I'm thinking about work or about family, about something, there are 20,000 things that I'm thinking about, but perhaps not about myself. And this was the time I could really understand myself and find some time to look after myself and to see that, what's going to push me to get the next chemo done. I was not looking at the end of the month, like, oh, my chemo is going to be over a period of 6 months. It feels like a mountain, but I was just taking baby steps. Okay, let me get this month over and done with. I was doing small little things like coming back home and crossing the calendar that 2 days done, thank God, and celebrating, and then the same thing. It was just giving me a tangible look, feel factor that, oh, you know what, I completed this. So these were the small treats I was doing for myself.
So was there a particular moment when you started thinking along those lines? There was an internal shift within you when you thought that this is the way that I need to handle this. Maybe thinking about myself, maybe assigning myself daily tasks. Is there a
Yes.
particular moment that you could think
Yes.
of?
It came with time. I cannot say that day one I was like bright and shiny and I had all these ideas. But I think the first two chemos, at least, because the first time you go for chemo, you really do not understand what's happening because everybody tells you different experiences. But when you sort of get into yourself, that's when you start to think. It takes time to adjust to that cycle. And then you start to think that, okay, maybe what should I do to just come out of this grouchy mood or, sad mood, and what can I do? And then you sort of start making a schedule for yourself, some amount of discipline, some amount of, trying to see that, identifying that what is it that purpose that I'm going to go behind, so then you start putting things around it. As I said, I used to write my thoughts down. That is one way I used to really able to, kind of really identify that, okay, these are the 5 thoughts I'm having. How am I going to, address each one of them?
So, for example, when circumstances feel limiting, how do you identify that is what is still within your control?
Something that is predictable, like, if I know that I have a short-term goal that my chemo is, let's say, going to be done on, I'm just making this up, let's say on Tuesday, maybe on Friday, I'm definitely going to step out and watch a movie. Maybe I'm going to the theater to watch the movie. I'm not going to sit at home and watch Netflix.
Okay.
So I will still push myself to go for that movie, whether I want to watch it or not. I'm just giving you an example.
Of course.
So then short-term goals, and not to avoid people, just to be with them and try to live a life as normal as one can be. There are days you don't want to, literally get up from the bed because you're so tired. But then, just telling yourself that, I want to really get ready for that movie. I'm going to go dressed up. I'm going to go looking good to the extent possible, because cancer changes a lot of your physical attributes as well, right? So you have to balance it out and see how you're going to look confident. I think that's about it. Not like really looking, but how do you feel confident? I mean, do you want to go and watch a movie? Do you want to go out, eat something? You want to go watch a play, something to go out, a family activity or so, or meet friends, for example. I think it's great to meet people, just not like stand isolated, because that makes you think even like, oh, you know what, I'm probably not going to survive, or very negative thoughts, so somehow you have to make yourself comfortable to say that, listen, these are things that I'm looking forward to. So small goals.
Of course. And I think it's important to have a social environment also around you, to be able to interact with people who are not actually part of the circle, who knows what is going on,
right,
in order to take your mind about the circumstances.
Absolutely.
That does help.
Absolutely. I would totally agree with you that, you have to, of course, have boundaries, because not, everybody has the kind of intention. It's not an ill intention, but people may just say something that would give you a feeling that you're a victim.
Correct.
So that's something I personally I do not like that. So if somebody says that, you have to have the boundaries drawn very gently and very nicely. Tell them that, it's about a process that you're going through, and you're going to be coming out of it, but you have to not take it as a victim. That's something usually most of the people who go through cancer face. So
how important was it for you to not have a label of maybe for a cancer patient or cancer affected?
Yeah.
And how did you manage letting people close to you know about it, not to treat you as such?
Yeah. So, I think just to tell them on their face. I mean, you don't need to be nasty or rude, or you can just tell them that, listen, this is not something, which I like. Or maybe you put it in a nicer way to say that, no, it's not like that. It's a journey, it's a treatment, and I'm going through that and I'll be fine. So there is a path, there is let's say a medical path that has been assigned to the cancer treatment, and one is following that, and with God's grace, things will be fine. So I think it's just about telling those people, because I really don't think many people have ill intentions. It's just that the sensitivity is not there, or maybe they're not thinking, or they just really want good for you. There's no negativity attached to it. But the only thing to address is to tell them that this is not something that's nice.
Yeah, sometimes people come with the best of intentions, but it's not
Absolutely.
something that you may resonate with.
Absolutely.
That
yes.
tends to happen. You worked towards a personal goal. You mentioned you continued pursuing your PhD.
Yes.
What motivated that decision?
For me, it was that what is an achievable goal? I really wanted something which, as I said, that, I like to really take control of things in and around me, like whether it's work decisions or whatever, it's my family decisions, etc. So for me, I just thought that I was losing control. Cancer was just sort of really upsetting all my schedules. So what is it that I can really control and I can deliver? I wanted, let's say, some kind of an achievable target, and which is where I thought that, oh, my PhD, maybe this is the time for me to focus on that and able to research, able to read, because I had time in my hand, right? So the days I was not good, I was not good. But the days I was okay, I was just sitting and working on it, and to the extent I could. And it was an achievable target that made me feel very happy.
Well, to be honest, it's a testimony to your strength of mind that you're pursuing a PhD as an achievable target. Not many people are able to do that.
Yeah.
And you've spoken about days, and some of the days that have been good and you've pushed yourself, but not every day is the same. On one of those difficult days where physically it has been challenging, what did you do to keep yourself going?
So the days that you are not good, it's just that probably, I would do like maybe listen to music sometimes, just sort of really, which calms me down, because your mind is like, zzz, buzzing, and you're getting all kinds of thoughts in your head. So for me, music really helped. It could be anything. It could be, let's say, some very nice English music or Hindi music or whatever, but something which is soothing and calming, and I would do that. I mean, anything that would just get my mind off those thoughts, whether watching a movie, reading a book, doing something, or maybe even sleeping. Sleeping is not possible, but yeah, I'm just trying to make an effort. But distract yourself, try to just sort of see that, oh, I'm not, just keep watching yourself and see that, like, this is not the right path for me. Let me move away from it, by distracting myself with something, maybe cooking something.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you're a great cook, I heard. What are your favorite cuisine that you prefer making?
I like to just cook nice vegetarian food, or sometimes, even chicken. I'm a non-vegetarian, but yeah, I like to cook. Depends on what my daughter likes, actually. So most of the time I'm cooking for her. But yeah, I think that is also a skill I picked up, because I never had that much time in my hand to do that. So I started to look up YouTube videos and just trying to see that, is there a better way of making it? Can I use less oil, less spices? How can I make it more healthy? Yeah. So yes, that was another skill I picked up.
That's wonderful to know. After going through this journey, how has the experience reshaped what you understand about strength?
I started to think as strength as a skill that should make you, happy and make you do things that what you want to do. Also vulnerable, like I cannot for a minute take away all the emotions that came my way, like anger and, self-critical and frustration and, mood swings, etc. So strength is able to recognize those, that, and how to be able to distract your mind to something which is more positive, and to be able to do that, which is what I said. And strength is also about identifying a purpose, which is what I'm sort of really coming back to, that identify a purpose which is achievable, because that gives a high. So.
And in your view, how much of this journey is medical and how much of it is mental?
So I have obviously kind of made my own theory around this. I don't know, what the doctors are going to say, but I believe that the medical treatment is like a ship, and the mindset is the steering wheel, so you can just steer it in any which ways, because these have to go together. If you steer it in the right direction, the medical help is going to really help you as a person. So it's all in the mind, and just how strongly you're able to navigate your mind to get the treatment and the medical treatment that is imposed on you, a tough one, but how you're able to endure that.
And I think many doctors have endorsed that the strength and the willpower of a patient actually helps in the treatment outcomes. And I think that's something that your example will be a...
That is true. I mean, I call it like a ship and a steering wheel.
You're a captain of your own ship.
Yeah, you are your own ship, right? So
that's true. When people begin to treat someone only as a patient, how critical it is to reclaim your identity as to you are something much more than that.
Yeah, very important actually, because as I think somewhere I did say that cancer is just a chapter of your life, not your whole life. So you are living that life only in one, like if you were to an actor, you're doing that acting in that one particular scene of treatment, right? So you have to really come across and talk to the person, what you do, what are your aspirations. You're not like one patient, but a person who could be anybody, who could be a doctor, could be a lawyer, who could be a housewife, who could be anybody. So you have to talk about yourself as a person because the other person doesn't know you. You've got to really introduce yourself. You tell them what you do, what you like. So I think that's how you make conversation and tell the person that, you're more than a patient.
So throughout this journey, how do you consciously move away from self-doubt or negativity and push yourself or gravitate towards positivity?
It's about telling yourself every single day that surviving is thriving. For survival, if that means to sort of educate your mind and doing things that you've always wanted to do, but as I said, short goals. Because if you say that, I would like to climb the Mount Everest, it's not going to happen. Yeah, in a way, you're climbing the Mount Everest only, but I mean, really, really so. So try to see if you can find happiness by way of small goals, which are achievable. Do it. Celebrate your happiness. Try to sort of, put marks tangible, which you can see that, what, I have done part of the journey. Don't think that, this whole treatment is going to take me 6 months. It will seem like a mountain. But if you look at it weekly, monthly, or daily basis, then it seems achievable. And that sense of achievement gives you a drive or a sense to accelerate more. So that is the way I would look at it.
Yes, but how important is it to celebrate the small wins?
Very much, because celebration, again, I think it's a very happy hormone and, everybody likes to celebrate their, celebration makes you feel closer. Your family also likes to see you happy because they are, always remember, they are also in as much trauma as you are because they are your loved ones. They want to make you feel happy all the time. And if you are happy, they are happy. So you don't have to do it for them, but do it for yourself or for them as well, because half the time when you're going through cancer, you're also worried that, you're guilty of burdening them more. You feel like, oh my God, you don't want to really burden them more. So if you feel happy, share the happiness by way of some small celebrations, whatever you can do.
So Manju, there must have been a point when you've finally been told that the chemotherapy is over, the cancer has gone. So what went through your mind at that time?
A big sense of relief to start with. And of course, there is a residual fear all the time. I was thinking that, is it going to come back? There is that fear of unknown, for example, that, how are there going to be any after effects of chemotherapy? Okay. There was some hair that I lost. Is it going to come back? Some hair I lost. Thankfully, I did not lose my complete, hair, but on my head. And so altogether, it was a kind of a bittersweet feeling. And but you have to continue to go through some tests, and you have to kind of just evaluate and monitor yourself just to make sure that that everything is in order for a couple of months. And then that duration keeps increasing. So that's where I am right now.
And what about today? I mean, I think you continue only routine checkups and you move forward. But how will you describe your state of mind as of today?
So today I feel quite, energetic. I definitely am, looking forward to doing things like get back into my exercise regime, which is a little bit intense. I was not able to do that much during that time. So I'm just looking forward to sort of really make my body, mind, and probably soul a little bit stronger and better. So I have already started with yoga, a little bit of intense yoga, which I had never tested in the past because I used to like gymming more. So I'm just exploring and trying to see what best I can do. I've also started looking at priorities differently. I've started taking some time more for myself from my work. I have taken some work schedules that give me a little bit more time to look after and take care of myself. So a lot of changes I have started doing in myself. That's one learning I took away with.
Okay, and we have a lot of people watching this, and for someone who's been diagnosed with a complex form of cancer, like for example yours, and natural tendency is to be overwhelmed, what is it that you want them to remember?
So cancer is overwhelming. There is no two ways about it. But my only request to everyone would be that stand up with yourself, and go through the journey with complete devotion, dedication, and discipline. Try to work on your mind and just sort of say that you want to survive and thrive. You want to get out of it, and whatever it takes to do that, try to, control your mind and steer yourself in a direction which is positive. Hang around with people who are more positive. Try to keep with your family and everything that gives you the strength and the courage to deal with this. So that would be my parting words, I suppose.
And is there someone that you want to acknowledge?
A lot of people. I think a lot of people. To start with, I would think that my family, my husband and my daughter, my adorable mother, sister, my entire husband's family, and not to forget at all, I think every single doctor in Tata Medical Hospital with whom I have dealt with. If I were to give the names out, I think it's going to just be a lot of names, but I would definitely like to call out Dr. Shikhande, who was my surgeon. And till now, I kind of have a great relationship with him.
And I think you'll be an inspiration to a lot of people who are watching this, who are looking for answers, especially answers about how to receive the news and how not to be overwhelmed.
Yes.
And I think a key takeaway from this point over here is, from this conversation over here today, would be how to set goals for yourselves, how to follow your passion,
Yes.
and to ensure that cancer is not your life. It's
Yes.
just a chapter.
That is true. It is, I think you summed it up quite well. Thank you very much. And, I'm very happy to answer any questions even later. More than happy to share my experiences. So thank you very much.
We'll be happy to take you up on your offer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pancreatic cancer is serious. The treatment is demanding. The journey can test the body and the mind. But today's conversation reminds us of something important. Our diagnosis is a chapter. It's not the entire story. Clarity matters. Discipline matters. Mindset matters. And sometimes courage is not loud. It looks like continuing. It looks like pursuing a goal. It looks like showing up even on difficult days. This is Voice of Courage. I'm Ankush Chauhan. And if fear has shaped your understanding, perhaps it is time to replace it with informed resilience. Because courage does not erase reality, it helps you move through it. Thank you.